Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're doing something pretty radical. We're completely dismantling our old assumptions about where intellectual value actually comes from in the digital age. We are living through a massive paradigm shift right now. It used to be that the absolute hardest part, the part that held all the value, was actually sitting down and building the thing. But honestly, generative AI has totally turned that reality on its head. Today, we're going to explore how cheap instant AI output is shifting all the intellectual value away from the raw product itself and moving it squarely toward audience trust, brand identity, and real-world problem validation. Let's kick things off with this idea from Anagram VC. They hit the nail on the head here. Historically, ideas were cheap, right? But execution was incredibly expensive. The gap between having a brilliant idea, building the prototype, and actually launching a business was huge. And your value as a founder sat entirely in your ability to cross that gap. But AI compresses that timeline violently. What used to take months of expensive engineering can now be prototyped in days, or crazy enough, literally hours. Building the product just isn't the constraint anymore. And because of that wild compression, we've got to face a stark, maybe even slightly uncomfortable reality. The raw product is no longer the asset. Think about it. Code, text, raw digital execution. They're heavily commoditized now. If you can spin up a functioning app or a stunning piece of visual media with a 10-second prompt, well, so can your competitors. The sheer volume of stuff being generated means that just bringing something into existence is no longer the bottleneck of human expression. Let's unpack how AI is eliminating the technical hurdles that used to act as these massive protective business moats. Part 1. The collapse of execution. A recent computer law study brilliantly illustrates this whole philosophical shift. On one side, you have traditional creation, right? Human intent directly shapes the final work, like a painter with the paintbrush. But with generative AI, that causal chain is completely broken. AI's probabilistic nature literally severs the direct link between human authorship and the final expression. When you type a prompt, you're just setting an initial condition in a stochastic system. The machine, sitting inside its opaque black box, uses statistical probabilities to guess the next word or pixel. You don't actually control the granular output anymore. And because the machine is the one determining the exact placement of those pixels or words, copyright offices are holding firm. These outputs lack the necessary human spark for legal protection. It completely shatters the old sweat of the brow illusion, the idea that just because you put a lot of effort into prompting, you automatically own the results. Nope. If the algorithm is doing the expressive heavy lifting, those raw AI outputs legally default right into the public domain. There's just no way to copyright a machine's probabilistic guess. In the legal world, this phenomenon is actually called semantic decapitation, which is a pretty intense term, but it basically means that no matter how incredibly complex or beautifully written your prompt is, the unpredictable mathematical choices inside the neural network sever your human intent from the final product. You're essentially just hiring a robotic scribe. You're the commissioning party saying, hey, paint me a picture, but the AI is the actual executing artist. And since machines can't hold property rights, your raw output is left completely unprotected from competitors, which brings us to a really dangerous pitfall for founders. Section 2, the validation track. Because execution is now practically free, we're seeing a massive acceleration toward a pretty grim statistic. Get this, 42% of early-stage startups fail for one incredibly simple reason. They build something for which there is absolutely no market need. Literally zero. They pour their time and energy into creating a brilliant solution for a problem that simply does not exist in the real world. And that is the building trap. Before AI, building took months of sweat and tears. Now, a founder can have an idea on a Tuesday and use AI to build a working prototype by Wednesday. But here's the trap. It's so easy to mistakenly treat the mere existence of that prototype as validation. You think, well, it works, therefore people must need it. But actual, concrete evidence only comes from user conversations. The new AI native necessity means you have to form a hypothesis and rigorously conduct customer discovery to find true problem-solution fit before you assume you have a viable business. If execution is free and the code you get is unprotected by copyright, we have to use AI differently. Section 3, accelerating customer discovery. So we need to use AI not just to build, but to relentlessly validate real-world problems. The Human-AI Collaboration and Adaptation Framework, or HACAF for short, shows us exactly how AI acts as this potent co-creator across 4 distinct discovery phases. It starts with stating your initial hypotheses, then going out and testing if the problem is even real, testing if your solution actually fixes it, and finally verifying your data or making the decision to pivot. If you use it right, AI is an absolute superpower in these stages. You can basically use AI as your ultimate devil's advocate. Instead of just churning out code, ask your AI to synthesize thousands of public competitor reviews to hunt down unmet needs. Have it pressure test your most fragile assumptions against really strong counterarguments. Or ask it to build highly precise target user profiles so you know exactly who you should be interviewing. You can use AI to safely stress test your hypotheses against reality before you spend a single dime or a single hour on actual product development. It's a total game changer. But, and this is a massive but, there is a human-in-the-loop requirement here. While AI is absolutely mind-blowing at data synthesis and generating hypotheses, it cannot replace social-centric interpersonal trust. AI can totally help you prep for an interview, but you, the human orchestrator, have to actually conduct it. You are still the final arbiter of qualitative social validation. You literally have to look a potential customer in the eye to know if they actually care about the problem you're trying to solve. Okay, so once we validated the problem and built the product, how do we actually capture lasting business value if the raw code can't be copyrighted? Section 4, Copyrights versus Trademarks. When we break down this distinction, Kleibert law lays it out perfectly. Copyright is all about protecting raw, creative expression, which, as we've established, AI outputs just don't qualify for. But trademark law? It's a whole different ballgame. It doesn't care about creative expression in the same way. It protects the source of the goods and the overall brand identity. Trademark is entirely about market usage and audience trust. So, whether a human or an AI designed your logo or wrote your tagline is largely immaterial as long as it successfully identifies your business to the people buying your product. You do have to be super careful when curating those AI-generated brand assets, though. Because AI trains on pre-existing information from competitors, there's a very real risk of generating marks that are infringing or just way too generic. And you have to remember, platforms like Canva or OpenAI explicitly disclaim any infringement warranties. If your AI-generated logo infringes on someone else's trademark, you are the one on the hook for the legal fees, not the software company. So thorough IP clearance searches, absolutely mandatory for modern founders. No skipping that step. This brings us to the ultimate realization about defending your business in an era of infinite generation. Section 5, the trust premium. We need to completely rewire our mindset here. We have to move away from this idea of sweat of the brow execution, valuing the raw labor of just building a product. Because AI does that for free now. Instead, we have to embrace orchestrator validation. This means putting the value on real-world testing, human-in-the-loop curation, and building an undeniable, trademarked identity that your audience implicitly trusts. When your product is incredibly easy to copy, the relationship you have with your customer literally becomes your only true moat. So as you're navigating this fast-paced AI-native economy, I want to leave you with one deep question. Are you obsessing over protecting your commoditized code, or are you actually out there validating your customer's reality? Just remember that your true business defense is the relationship you build and the actual problems you solve, not just the pixels and text you generate. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope this helps you build smarter, more defensible ideas going forward. Catch you next time.